Welcome to this special edition of Hard Talk on the road from Puerto Rico, the Caribbean island which belongs to the United States and which is currently drowning in debt. Just 3.5 million people live here, but they've managed to run up a public debt of $70 billion. Without an emergency financial rescue, Puerto Rico is going bust. And that will send shockwaves all the way to Wall Street.
Z93, tu emisora nacional de la salsa.
San Juan, Puerto Rico's capital, has miles of beach, palm trees, and year-round sunshine. To the new arrival, it's the classic Caribbean cocktail. But for Puerto Ricans, life has turned sour. Their island is on the road to economic ruin. Driving around the streets of San Juan, frankly, it feels pretty much like driving around Florida. This place is incredibly Americanized, but the statistics, well, they don't lie. Unemployment is more than twice as high in Puerto Rico, and as for poverty rates, well, this place is more than twice as poor as the poorest state in the US. Puerto Rico is US sovereign territory, has been for more than a century. But unlike Hawaii, for example, Puerto Rico is not a state in the Union. It governs itself. For most Americans, the island has never been more than a one-day stop on a Caribbean cruise. This is the Puerto Rico tourists don't see. Demonstrators taking to the streets in defense of basic public services, threatened by a Greek-style debt crisis. 9 years of recession, a collapse in outside investment, and a government borrowing way beyond its means have taken Puerto Rico to the edge of financial ruin. The island's government has a massive pile of public debt, and the creditors, including America's biggest pension funds and hedge funds, want their money back.
I represent and I advise different groups of investors that hold Puerto Rico paper, and they include, some of them may be hedge funds, others may be, many of them are companies that have been committed to Puerto Rico for over 30 or 40 years, and they've held bonds for many decades.
Here's the thing, you are Puerto Rican, you've worked in the Puerto Rican government. I wonder if it sits comfortably and easily with you to be pushing for repayment of these debts when the governor of Puerto Rico says, frankly, the debt mountain is so high that the debts are, his word, unpayable.
He's wrong. And he was wrong before I represented anybody. I don't think that the way that you resolve Puerto Rico's financial crisis is to be slapping in the face the people who have helped Puerto Rico finance its development over the years. And the same people that you're going to try to attract in the future to continue investing in Puerto Rico. We can make adjustments, and to make adjustments you have to have a good faith negotiation on both sides of the table.
Well, do you bring good faith to the table?
Yes, we do.
Because what we hear...
Although I don't negotiate. I'm not in charge of negotiation.
No, but you represent people who do negotiate.
I advise people who...
And what we hear is that they are driving a very hard bargain, a bargain that the Puerto Rican government, the authorities here, cannot meet. For example, they're demanding new taxes, they're demanding even greater cuts in pensions. They want things which are going to hurt the ordinary people of this island.
We are in the crisis because the governor of Puerto Rico wants to spend more than Puerto Rico can afford to spend.
The development bank, which manages the finances here, has less than $1 billion in cash reserves. Those cash reserves could be finished by the end of this year. This place could be going bust.
If there is mismanagement, yes, money can be over. But if there is not mismanagement, if you solely spend on things that are essential that be spent, you would not have that mismanagement.
Do you think Puerto Rico will go bust?
Puerto Rico has no reason to go bust. But you're asking me a very logical question regarding people who have made a policy-making process that is very illogical. So there's no need for us to go bust, and there are roadmaps to resolving the crisis and not having to go bust.
Protesters from Puerto Rico's teachers' union vent their anger on the steps of the island's parliament. They're furious about government plans to reform the education system.
Well, they're in good voice, but there aren't many of them. Maybe that's the problem here in Puerto Rico. People are losing any hope that they can actually get out of the mess that they're in.
Schools are being closed, pensions cut, and, according to the teachers, education's being privatized by a government desperate to save cash.
Our students of lower economical incomes, they don't have money to pay a private school. They don't have money to pay a lunch.
School should be for everybody, and it should be public. That's why we are here, because we are defending our students, our communities. They are closing schools. You have to pay for many things when you privatize school. That's not fair. Our Constitution tells us public school should be public.
Inside Puerto Rico's Parliament building, the woman testifying is the guardian of the island's public finances, Melba Acosta, boss of the Government Development Bank. She's calm, but she's in the eye of a financial storm.
The Puerto Rican government is very close to running out of money. Actually, if we haven't taken some emergency measures, we would have been already out of money. For example, we have taken certain measures such as delaying payments to vendors, not paying tax refunds that we owed our citizens, taking money from the insurance companies, the public insurance companies, and so forth.
So you're actually reneging on some of your debts already?
Well, yeah, one of the debts was not paid. That was a payment that was due back in July, August. It was, yeah, we didn't pay that.
So you are, if I may say so, teetering on the brink of a serious default. Yeah, and you don't have the money to pay.
We have been taking measures that are actually hurting our economy to make sure that we keep the government running.
But will you be able to pay those repayments in January, yes or no?
We are taking measures to try to be able to pay. One of the measures has to do with the financing.
You don't sound very confident.
Well, because you can plan, but for example, you cannot make sure that the revenues are going to come as estimated, as budgeted. You could have a shortfall in revenues like we have in the month of October. So yes, there are risks involved.
And what are you going to do in terms of ensuring that pensions get paid, that essential services are financed, that people's healthcare needs are met? You may run out of liquid cash.
Yeah, we commissioned a study by some past economists of the IMF. The study came and basically they concluded that our debt is not sustainable. I mean, with the amount of growth that we have, because that's the problem. The problem is not that Puerto Rico has too much debt, it's that Puerto Rico has too much debt and no growth in our economy.
I've just spoken to the lobbyist, Mr. McClintock, who is being paid by the creditors to sit in the negotiations, and he says you and the governor are in many ways crying wolf. You're claiming that the debts are higher than they really are. No. You're claiming that you've run out of money. And he says you're simply doing it to avoid paying what is due.
That is completely wrong. I mean, that is not true. We have the situation that we have. The debt, we have analysis and studies of where, I mean, we cannot hide the debt. I mean, the debt is public. I mean, there are reports issued by my bank of the amount of debt.
But the creditors are not in a good mood. The creditors look at what the governor said in the summer when he said, these debts are unpayable. And the creditors say, how dare he say that? He's sending a signal, even before we've started negotiating, a signal that he's not going to pay.
Well, that's the problem that Puerto Rico has. As probably you know, Puerto Rico does different from states in the United States. We don't have Chapter 9, which is a bankruptcy protection. The same law that Detroit used recently to restructure its debt, Puerto Rico doesn't have that.
What if the creditors say, forget about it, I want my money back?
We have to take the decision whether to pay debt or to provide basic services to Puerto Rico citizens. If we have to decide between paying them or providing basic services, we're going to provide basic services.
On the streets of San Juan, there isn't exactly an air of panic. But within weeks, basic state provisions from pensions to power to garbage collection could be under threat. Many of the best and the brightest simply want to get out. Luis Correa is a respected consultant doctor. He hasn't told his hundreds of patients yet, but he's decided to head to Florida. As US citizens, it's a choice that's open to every Puerto Rican.
When you have kids and you are thinking about the chances that they may have when you grow up, you find out that this island at the present time is not a good choice. So basically you want to offer your kids a better future. So in order to offer that, you have to take a big step.
But you have a good job, you are a successful doctor. Look at all of these patients, these records here. You have hundreds of patients.
Yes.
What's the problem?
Right here on the island, we have a big issue with the medical insurance companies, and they haven't changed the payment since the last 15 years.
For seeing a patient today in this surgery, how much do you get paid?
You're talking about $15, $20.
So you're saying you really can't make a good income in the system here in Puerto Rico?
Yes, that's the main situation here.
And your wife is a doctor too?
She's a doctor too.
So you are exactly the sort of people, smart, educated, motivated people, that this island needs to keep here. And yet you're going. Do you feel bad about that?
Sometimes I do feel bad because you feel kind of, you live in people that you love in the island, and sometimes you think that you have to help them, do something for them, but when you don't have support from the government, what else can you do? You have to do for your family. So that's tough and big decision.
Have you got job offers already?
Yes.
How much do you think you can earn in the United States, roughly?
Roughly, maybe you can make 50% more than you can make in the island.
When you go to Florida, take the wife, the kids, do you think you'll ever come home, back to Puerto Rico?
I don't think I'm gonna come back ever. I mean, I can come back for vacations or short stay, but not to live again. I don't think so. The situation on the island, I don't think that it's gonna change. So basically, we're living forever.
For previous generations of poor Puerto Ricans, emigration to the US was a way out. Now, whole communities are heading for the exit. Arecibo is 80 kilometers west of San Juan. 50 years ago, it was a thriving commercial center, buoyed by profits from the sugarcane industry. But the sugar money's gone, and so have many of the town's businesses and people. 5,000 residents have moved out in the last 5 years. Puerto Rico's total population is down 10% in a decade. The Jefferson High School in the center of town was opened in 1909. Now, only weeds flourish in the playground.
There is something uniquely depressing about a derelict school with an overgrown playground. Towns like Arecibo are losing their young people. The average age here has risen dramatically. It feels like the lifeblood of the town is draining away.
We found the Torres family enjoying Sunday lunch in the center of Arecibo. Jose's a postman, Vivian a nurse. They want to stay, but they're not sure they will.
Sí, tengo familiares que se han ido a Estados Unidos. A muchas amistades conocemos que se han ido a Estados Unidos. Pero en los últimos 10 años esa es la tendencia en este país.
Áreas de trabajo, pues hay poco y la gente aspira mucho más. y se han ido. Pero como la mitad, tal vez, de las amistades.
Okay.
Lo hemos pensado, pero todavía nos aferramos aquí.
How can Puerto Rico rebuild its economic foundations? Well, in San Juan, they're trying to attract mega-rich American entrepreneurs by exploiting a clause in the US tax code, which gives huge tax breaks to multi-millionaires prepared to relocate to the island.
Now, we're actually in the center of San Juan right now.
Nick Prouty is one US businessman who's moved his family here. He's running the biggest development project in all of Puerto Rico, placing a speculative bet on the island's ability to repair its broken economy.
The one thing I do know is that the only way that Puerto Rico heals itself is to attract outside capital. And without outside capital, the engine does not run. You have to have money. And the three principal areas where capital resided in Puerto Rico were real estate, bank stocks, and bonds. All three of those took an enormous hit. So without outside capital, this place will not be able to resurrect itself.
And what do you say to those Puerto Ricans who see you, and I put this bluntly, as a vulture, picking away at the corpse of the Puerto Rican economy?
Well, I say that these assets were available to everybody in Puerto Rico for quite a long time before we came in and we acquired them. And we did not acquire them to be a quick buck artist and to flip them. We acquired them and we decided to add value to them, and we've ended up employing thousands of people in Puerto Rico as a result of that. And the assets that we've acquired are primarily for Puerto Ricans. We're not looking to attract outsiders, we're looking to solve issues internally.
You sound passionate. You also sound kind of angry that you are being characterized by some on this island as, you know, a guy who's come in to take advantage of their problems.
Well, I think that's a very small minority of people. And if I come across as angry, that I shouldn't, because I have been, I think, welcomed to a degree that has been very gratifying. And they've seen that our investments have translated into real work, that have translated into a thoughtful investment approach that takes into considerations neighborhoods. That's meaningful.
Puerto Rico is an economy and a culture caught between two worlds. It's American, and yet it's steeped in Latin values. For decades, Puerto Rico's government spent beyond its means, hoping the federal government in Washington would come to the rescue if things got messy. Well, they did. And now politicians in Washington and Puerto Rico are fighting over who should pay the price.
$18 billion worth of the debt was issued by the central government. It's guaranteed by our Constitution. This is a society of law and order. But of course we need to pay that. Then you do have debt issued by public corporations, government-owned entities like the Power Authority in Puerto Rico, the Water and Sewer Authority of Puerto Rico. And I'm saying with respect to those that we should restructure those debts. And I am the one who introduced...
if the creditors don't agree?
And I introduced...
If the creditors don't agree, would you say to the creditors, tough, you're going to lose money whether you like it or not?
You need to be smart about it.
With respect, just answer the question, because this is what matters to the people who have put money into Puerto Rico. Do you say to the creditors, you are going to lose your money?
You sit down with the creditors and you try to negotiate the restructuring, because you're right. If it could come, push comes to shove, it could get to that the entities are unable to pay its bills. There's a difference between saying, I'm not paying, and sitting down and trying to negotiate a new deal.
So a generation of politicians was living beyond its means.
Yes.
Your party, and the other main party have failed the people of this country for a generation. I mean, why are you in this mess then?
No, well, first of all, it's shared responsibility.
That's what I'm saying.
It's not a matter.
So what portion of responsibility are you prepared to take?
Okay, I will take it on behalf of the people of Puerto Rico, because the people of Puerto Rico elect their officials in government, and the officials need to account to the people.
So I want to hear exactly what responsibility.
On behalf of the people of Puerto
Rico. So what
Rico.
responsibility are you prepared to take?
To the extent that government was financing in the markets operating deficits, that's not a good practice. But there's shared responsibility, because you also have to ask, why were we in that boat? And we were in large part in that boat because the federal government hasn't been treating Puerto Rico fairly. Billions of dollars.
So you think in the end you can get away with blaming the federal government for this?
Both have responsibility. I have appeared before Congress, before the Senate, and I have told them to their face, in their straight, I've said, you also own part of this problem. It's not as simple as saying, well, the leaders in Puerto Rico, all of them have been incompetent. No, that's not right. Because we do owe, we share part of the responsibility to the extent that there was overspending in Puerto Rico. I agree. We have to put our fiscal house in order. But at the same time, we have been losing billions of dollars, and we're American citizens because of the treatment we get from the federal government.
And you believe...
And that affects our economy, that affects the fiscal health of our government.
And you believe that the solution to that is full statehood for Puerto Rico, to be a state just like Florida or California or any other state.
That's the goal. That would be a permanent solution to the lack of democracy in Puerto Rico on the one hand,
but let me just tell you,
and on the other, the lack of equal treatment in federal programs in Puerto Rico.
The bottom line is, whatever you want Washington to do to help you, they're not going to do it. There's no sign of a federal... They better do it. But why? Why do they have to?
They will.
But why do they have to?
First of all, this is an American territory. Second, we're American citizens. Third, people are leaving Puerto Rico in droves. Florida, Texas, we're losing net 60,000 people a year.
But what if people in Washington don't really care, even about that?
They should care, because this could be an embarrassment to the U.S. It has become an embarrassment.
It's 10 o'clock on a Monday night in a working-class neighborhood of San Juan. We've just got here, and the TV news is still full of the economic miseries in this place, but we seem to have found a party. So let's take a look.
Never mind the debts or the economic crisis, in San Juan, the beat goes on. It's tempting for Puerto Ricans to try to forget the mess they're in. But when the music stops, they're going to be left with an almighty hangover. And it could take years for the pain to ease.